If only they had shown up to start the second period. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Seattle Kraken overall played a pretty good game, but just don't show up to the first few minutes of the second period, and it ends up costing them 2 points in the standings. Or at the very least, 1 point, but yeah, it's a first few minutes to forget for sure, and unfortunately, it nullifies what otherwise was a pretty good effort. Before we get into the game, though, where the Kraken, by the way, final score lose 4-2 with one of the Detroit goals being an empty netter, before we get too deep into it, there is actually quite a bit of injury news. Overall, good news for the Kraken, though on the bad end of things, Matt Murray does head to the IR where he joins Jared McCann and Capo Caco. But coming off of the IR for the Kraken, the name missing from the ones I just said, was Joey Decord, who does come back for the Kraken in this game. He's right back in net for them, and we'll get to how that goes for him. The other good news there from the Kraken is one of those guys that I just mentioned in Jared McCann is with the team and skating. So hopefully that means a return at some point during this road trip. Sooner rather than better would obviously be ideal for a team that is having trouble scoring very much, even with 9 goals in the 2 games leading into this road trip. They could certainly use the scoring help that McCann could provide. And especially with that first line, with the way that Beniers has been playing so far this season, if you just get a little bit more scoring potential on his wing, it could be pretty dangerous. So we'll see when and where in the lineup McCann eventually comes back, but we cannot wait for his return. And the team literally might not be able to wait for his return with how things have gone offensively for them. With that having been said, though, at least in the first period of this game, as we do get into it, I wouldn't say that offensive generation, or at least generating offensive chances, was really a problem for the Kraken. They did generate some pretty good chances throughout the first 20 minutes, and so did the Red Wings. It was overall a pretty fun, exciting first period to watch. Both teams playing well in transition and offensively, getting those chances, also playing fairly well defensively, and both goaltenders looking sharp to start, especially Decord, who I would say, and the stats back it up, generally speaking, the Red Wings had the slight edge as far as the overall quality of their chances they got in the first, but it was a pretty evenly played period with both teams having right around, it was 10 or 11 shots per team. Thankfully for the Kraken, though, as they've done pretty frequently this season, they are the ones that get on the board first with a late power play. 2 minutes, 10 seconds left in the period is when the Kraken get this 2-minute minor, and it doesn't take them the full 2 minutes to get that lead. Just over a minute into the power play, the first unit still out on the ice as they're able to hold the offensive end for the vast majority of their time out there. It's eventually done over to Tolvanen, who from the high face-off circle just winds up and fires a bullet on net. That does rebound off Talbot right out to Beniers, who is able to get his stick through a bunch of other sticks and feet of Red Wing players out in front of the net. He's able to get his stick on it first and just kind of tap it backhand out to Eberle on the far side, who buries it into the backside of the net. No chance really for Talbot as soon as that pass gets out to Eberle. The Kraken, with the power play goal, take that 1-0 lead and would take it into the first intermission. Unfortunately, though, that does bring us to the sore spot of this game for the Kraken, and that would be the first few minutes, really even first half of the second period, where the Red Wings, in spite of a couple of chances the Kraken do get rushing back the other way, they just aren't able to defend the Red Wings coming back like they were in the first. The Red Wings are getting some odd man chances and some good looks on net. Eventually, it's one of those odd man chances just over a minute into the period that ends up in the back of it. And to be perfectly honest, this one was for an odd man rush, which it's not ideal to put yourself in those situations, but they're going to happen over the course of a game, over the course of a season. You're going to see some here and there. And this one, I would say, was relatively well defended. They take away the passing lanes, the 2 Kraken players back. I think it was Evans and Alexiak that were back. Take away the passing lanes, force the puck carrier to the outside to take the shot, which that's what you want. You leave the goaltender to that shot. And even with that, as soon as it's Raymond who decides to take that, at least I think it was Raymond. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Raymond who winds up to take the shot. As soon as he commits to the shot, Evans gets at least his stick out in front of it, isn't really able to defend it all, and unfortunately, it ends up just going off the inside of the armpit of Decord, leaking through him and into the back of the net. This one, pretty wholly on Decord, and I think you could tell pretty clearly from his reaction to this goal that it's definitely one that he would want back, and certainly an uncharacteristic goal that we see him allow, though maybe just still knocking off a little bit of the rust, even after a really strong first period. And then just seconds later, the Red Wings with the puck back once again in the Kraken end of the ice, where they spent a good chunk of the first half of the second period. It's a shot from well out that this one, I don't know that I could really blame anybody other than just the Kraken inability to get the puck out of their end and keep Detroit from getting offensive chances. If you keep letting them get chances, especially flurries of chances like they were getting here to start out this period, eventually you might get a lucky bounce or two, and that's just what the Red Wings get here. It's a couple lucky bounces. A shot from well out deflects just a bit off the stick of, I think it was Appleton on the way, and then off the shin of a Red Wing standing on the far side at the top of the crease. Two different deflections, no real chance for Decord. It happens to go off both of them and into the net behind Decord to give the Red Wings the quick 2-1 lead, where just less than a minute previous, they had been down by one. And then things just keep going from bad to worse for the Kraken, who just continue to implode on themselves here early on in this period. I mean, sure, you get the unlucky bounce, but they still are just continuously letting the Red Wings into their end of the ice, off of rushes, getting set up easily, allowing them to have net front presence relatively uncontested. Well, it's more of the same. It's another rush chance. This time, it's the same rookie who just scored off of his shin, his first NHL goal, that just completely walks Adam Larsson off of a puck thrown into the zone, gets it through Larsson's legs, works it around him, and then is able to beat Decord with a nice move just right out in front of the crease, wrapping it around to the far side. He gets his second NHL goal, his second goal in just a few minutes, and gives the Red Wings the 3-1 lead. Luckily, though, for the Kraken this time, they would get this one back as they challenge it for offside, and it was really close. I mean, literally that close, with the puck in midair, just still touching the blue line. The skate of a Detroit player was across the line, or both skates, I should say, but the back skate was just barely across the line with enough white to see that he was offside. It took them a long time to look at this one and determine that it was offside. It's very fortunate for the Kraken that they do see it, because it had absolutely no effect on the play whatsoever. But the rule is the rule. He was offside, and just like that, the Kraken are able to take that one off the board. Fortunately, that does seem to slow down the Red Wings' momentum. The Kraken wake up into the second period at least a little bit anyway, or maybe I should say at least at 5-on-5 they do wake up. They get down into the Red Wings' end of the ice, and it's not long before they're back on the board. A very nice shift from Shane Wright, who overall I thought had a pretty good game tonight, but a very good forecheck from Wright, is able to keep the puck in and then win it against two Red Wings along the boards. He gets it up to Riker Evans. Evans, with a shot from well out, deflects off something in front and is into the near side top corner to give the Kraken their second goal of the game, and thanks to the challenge just minutes earlier, ties this game rather than bringing them back to within one. It would be a goal that would take them quite a while, it would take them until during the second intermission to for sure figure out who had this goal. It starts out as Riker Evans' goal. Then midway through the second period, they change it to Berkeley Catton's first NHL goal, thinking that maybe it had deflected off of him. But then eventually, after the second intermission, we come back to find out that they had fully definitively decided that it had not touched Catton, and it was Evans' second of the season. Unfortunately for the Kraken, though, it's a goal that only minutes later they would end up giving back, as Yanni Newman makes a power move towards the net and collides hard with Talbot. It's an iffy one. They didn't seem to call it right away for goaltender interference, partially because Newman isn't given the chance to change course to try and stop and move back up to the top of the crease to avoid the contact with Talbot. He's definitely pushed into Talbot a little bit, but the path that he was on when he was pushed was also going towards Talbot, so it's hard to say for sure if he would have been able to avoid the contact entirely. It seemed like one of those where he probably would have been able to kind of turn up enough to sort of spin his way out in front of Talbot, not make very much contact, but because he's forced to stay on the trajectory he's on, he goes barreling into Talbot full out. That leads to a big gathering of players, some punches being thrown, light punches, lots of shoving, and I'm sure some strong language thrown at each other, but eventually it all shakes out to no roughing calls, and Newman headed to the box for goaltender interference, as I guess they talked themselves into goaltender interference, the officials that is, while all the chaos was happening with the Red Wings, understandably coming to the defense of their goaltender, and the Kraken coming to the defense of Newman, who also was kind of getting some punches thrown at him while laying back down on the ice. So it was some chaos. Newman ends up in the box. Unfortunately for the Kraken, that means they're going to a penalty kill. And of course, as seems to happen all too frequently. The Kraken penalty kill is due to completely collapse on itself at least once a game, and it seems quite frequent that it's their first trip to the penalty kill where it really ends up happening, and sure enough, it happens here. The Kraken kill off the majority of the power play before eventually a pass from below the goal line gets thrown up to the far side of the slot, and the shot's on net before Decord can really react to it fully. It would have taken a pretty nice save from Decord. He isn't able to make it. The power play goal gives back Detroit the lead 3-2. And this is one where there's at least two Kraken defenders here two of the penalty killers that were in this passing lane that should have been able to break it up. It's, I think, Riker Evans and Chandler Stevenson, which as far as Chandler Stevenson is concerned, I don't really know why he's still on the penalty kill. I understood while Gaudreau was out that you want to put Stevenson out there because he's by far your best chance at winning a face-off to start it. But as soon as you win that face-off and get it clear, he should be off the ice and get someone who can actually play defense in their own end onto the ice. But now that you have Gaudreau back, he can actually kill some penalties decently well and win face-offs, so why not just have him out there the whole time? Regardless, that pass gets through Stevenson and Evans up to the eventual goal scorer. This turns out to be the game-deciding goal. There wouldn't be anything else really that eventful through the rest of the second, so we head to the third, with the Red Wings leading 3-2. Well, I say not anything that eventful. The Red Wings do end up with another power play with a minute left in the second, which carries over into the start of the third. The Kraken are able to kill that one off, though the Red Wings got a couple of good looks that they just sent wide of the net. Could have easily ended up scoring on this power play, both at the end of the second and the start of the third, but the Kraken were able to at least avoid that somehow, certainly helped by the fact that while the Red Wings had the puck in their end, the period ended, so then play has to start at center ice to start the next one. The Kraken can at least kill off a few more seconds that way. So a intermission assisted kill there. The Kraken survive it, get into the rest of the third period, where I felt like the Kraken did a pretty good job of getting into the offensive end, had a couple of good shifts here and there. I shouldn't say did a good job getting into the offensive end necessarily, but they spent a good amount of time with the puck. They did have some trouble actually getting into the offensive end. The transition through the neutral zone wasn't always fantastic, but they did still have a few pretty good shifts. The first line in particular had two very good shifts. Both of them I could have easily scored on. Just one pass gets through and a good shot. It felt like that game-tying goal was coming for the Kraken at a couple of different points, but credit to the Red Wings. This was a very well-defended third period. It did seem as it went on that they started to lean heavier and heavier into the defensive side of things and not really trying to extend the lead. Decord wasn't worked particularly hard at the other end of the ice, except for one flurry midway through the period where he made two very nice saves on Alex DeBrincat. But yeah, the Red Wings, not a ton of quality chances aside from those back-to-back chances that Decord makes one toe save on one side, the rebound back out to DeBrincat, and then he makes a toe save on the other side. So a good couple saves there. The Kraken back the other way eventually do get Decord pulled, and Talbot nearly hands them the game-tying goal in the final minute. He leaves it, miscommunicates with one of his players, leaves it behind the net while his player stops thinking he's going to get the pass, and then Shane Wright just diving down, scoops up the puck, throws it to the front of the net where Tolvanen is waiting. Tolvanen with the quick shot and lunging back across his crease, having just gotten back in front of the net. Talbot makes a very nice to borderline spectacular glove save to bail himself out and also keep the Kraken from tying this one. Once they do get Decord pulled, that would be pretty much their last good chance to score. The Red Wings do eventually hit the empty net, and that gets us to this 4-2 final. So again, for the Kraken, overall, I think it was a pretty well-played game, aside from just the first few minutes of that second period that made all the difference. 2 goals and too many good opportunities for the Red Wings end up making the difference. Yeah, it would be nice to see a little bit more goal scoring, though. I think a lot of that was just some well-played defense by the Red Wings. The Kraken, in general, aside from the start of the second, played some pretty good defense as well. Decord looked sharp, aside from the start of the second, where he let in that bad one. And we'll just have to hope that the Kraken can bottle everything aside from those first few minutes of that second period as they go through the rest of the road trip. They still looked like a team that was playing well enough that you lose a close one because of a bad couple minutes to a Detroit team that is playing pretty well here to start out the season on the road, and they've been pretty good at home. So I don't really feel that disappointed with this loss. It just kind of, it makes you wonder what could have been that it ends up being lost in such a short span of time. And honestly, from a team perspective, I don't know that there's much more to take away from this game than that. The Kraken, again, just played generally well aside from that short window of time. The penalty kill is still a problem, but that's nothing terribly new. The power play scored another goal. They're opportunistic at the very least. I wouldn't say that they were necessarily great in this game. They did get a second power play in the third period, which didn't really go much of anywhere. They got a couple of chances, but mostly it was a lot of passing around the outside and just couldn't find the shot that they liked. Eventually, it just kind of ended up coming to nothing. So that was a chance where maybe if you're just not finding anything, just try to take a shot on from far out and hope that you get a rebound, which is what happened with your goal in the first one. Got a rebound that Beniers could handle, get it out to Eberle. So figure out some sort of contingency plan if you're not able to get the puck to the middle of the ice. Try and get some bodies there and then just throw the puck in and hope for the best. I don't know. I'm no expert, but at least they got one goal. The difference overall in special teams in this one was a wash, with the power play getting the goal and then the penalty kill being the 2025 Kraken penalty kill, or 25-26 Kraken penalty kill, which really needs to get turned around at some point if this team wants to keep their spot in the top 3 in the Pacific, or just keep a spot in this playoff conversation. It's still a pretty tight race in the West. Just a couple of points, 2, 3, 4 points makes the difference between being one of the top 3 teams in the division and being out of the picture entirely. So, I mean, still lots and lots and lots of season left. We're just 19 games in, so still less than a quarter of the way into the season. But we all know about that magic Thanksgiving marker that for whatever reason, like 75 to 80% of teams that are in the playoffs at Thanksgiving, US Thanksgiving, end up making the playoffs. So take that for what you will. This year might be one where we see some more teams that were in the playoffs at Thanksgiving end up missing it because of how tight things are, both in the West and especially in the East. So certainly job is far from done. There's still plenty of time for the Kraken to get some things figured out, but they definitely need to figure out the penalty kill and how to get a little bit more scoring to happen. Hopefully McCann coming back sooner rather than later will help that along. And also hopefully the Kraken can avoid having any more injuries, but time will only tell as far as that's concerned. Aside from that, I think we can just get to some individual efforts, and that brings us, of course, to the Kraken 3 stars. As always, brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you do want to help decide 3 stars after every regular season, or if they make it playoff game, you can help support a little bit more than you already are by watching this point, going to the link down below and supporting on Patreon as well. And with the first star in this game, I'm going to go with the only player specifically mentioned to be for sure a star in this one, in Eeli Tolvanen, who I think is a good shout out. He does end up with a secondary assist on the power play goal for the Kraken. But overall, I did think Tolvanen had a pretty good game. He was putting himself in some good places to take some shots. Nearly tied the game late there from that pass from Wright. Speaking of whom, the second star that I'm going to give out in this one is Shane Wright. He does not get on the scoring sheet, but I thought Wright had a fantastic game. I would say easily one of his best so far of this season. He's been, I hate to say it, he's been mostly invisible this season. Just hasn't really made any big mistakes, hasn't been noticeable in a bad way, but has not been noticeable in a good way. And for a player with the talent that Wright has, and a team that is long-term, really, I think, kind of relying on Wright to start harnessing some of that offensive potential, we just haven't really seen it to this point in the season. Certainly not on any kind of consistent basis. And some of that could be that he, once again, is not getting the amount of ice time that I would like to see him getting per game. But he also hasn't really had a consistent setup around him. He's had, I don't know how many different line combinations around him. Now he's on the wing rather than at center. They're trying different things with him, but at some point I have to wonder how much would it help him to just have some consistency for a little bit, and maybe it takes him a while to have that consistency turn into something. But especially for a player who so much of his strength in the game is the hockey IQ and knowing where his teammates and kind of having a sense of where people are, even if he isn't actually directly looking at them. I think having some consistency and actually getting used to the same couple of players on his line for a long extended period of time would help with him knowing where to expect guys to be. I don't know. I will say that I'm at least glad to see him on a line with Berkeley Cat, and I think that two of them, the strengths in their games could work pretty well together. We'll see if that eventually pans out into anything. They've been together for a few games now, weirdly enough, with Cat at center and Wright on the wing, where I would think the other way around would work a little bit better, but who knows. At least in this game anyway, I thought Wright played very well. He was very good on the forward check, had a couple of good defensive moments, but he's largely responsible for that second goal that the Kraken got, and also had a few other good shifts that could have easily led to some Kraken goals, some good moments for him. He nearly sets up Tolvanen for what could have been the game tying goal, if not for that great save by Talbot. Overall, one of the best games of the season for Wright, and hopefully something for him to build on going forward. Third star, honestly, I don't know if there's really a third star. I don't know that there's really a third player that stood out to me really that positively where I wanted to go out and give them a star in a loss. There's really just Tolvanen, who was mentioned on Patreon, and Wright that stood out in a very positive way that I felt like they played well enough to win. But yeah, the rest of the team, I mean, look, Beniers keeps looking good. I will say with Marchment, this was one of the first games in a while since probably the game in Dallas where I didn't notice him have a lazy play or just give up on a play at any point in the game. He did have one kind of questionable turnover, but it's a no-look pass trying to get it back to someone that he thinks is following him into the zone, and they just weren't there. So that wasn't necessarily laziness. It wasn't him just skating slowly or getting to a puck slow. I thought Marchment had a fairly good game and is surprisingly looked pretty good on Beniers' wing. I think the physicality that he can bring when he's putting in his at least 80 to 100% effort does help in the way that Capo Caco helped at the back end of last season. That size and physicality, getting in, winning some of those puck battles so that Beniers can work a little bit more in space does help. So I don't know. I thought Marchment did look good in this game, but I don't think overwhelmingly so that I necessarily want to give him a star. I mean, Riker Evans had a goal, but also was partially responsible for the penalty kill goals. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below if there's a third star that you would want to give out. Decord was very good for the most part, but gave in one pretty bad goal. One of the worst goals that we've seen Decord give up, which he doesn't give up very many, so it's, you know, there's not a lot of company, but it was a pretty bad goal. Other than that, he did look good. So hopefully that's a one and done. Got that one out of his system to coming back from the IR, and yeah, hopefully we'll get back to seeing the 915 to 920 save percentage Decord here for the next little bit, with also hopefully a few starts here and there sprinkled in for Grubauer so that Decord doesn't just get worn out again and end up getting hurt again. Anyway, with that now also having been said, we will close this one out with just the one last thing to mention that I am planning to stream on Thursday. Still not a total 100%, but I'm hoping to be streaming on Thursday for the game at 5 o'clock in Chicago, 5 o'clock Pacific time in Chicago. A game that the Kraken very well should win. This Detroit one I thought was kind of a 50-50 coming in. Again, the Red Wings have been off to a pretty good start to the season themselves and have been playing well at home. First game of a road trip, you never know what to expect. The game in Chicago, I'm willing to say that I'm expecting a win for the Kraken. It's still definitely not a total gimme. This is still a Blackhawks team that, very much like the Sharks, are starting to improve. They're not a total complete free 2-point pushover like they have been in years past, and even at that, it hasn't necessarily always been those games that the Kraken take advantage of. So they'll need to still be paying attention to those details, especially the defensive details. Otherwise, the Blackhawks will take advantage and score on them. So still one that the Kraken have to play well, but if they do, it should be 2 points in the standings and hopefully get back on a little bit of a roll here on the road. Until then, though, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.